Okay, we've done that. All systems still good?
Yep.
Okay, now I'll start the Zoom recording as a backup. I'll resume it in 1, 2, 3.
Recording in progress.
Okay, now we're going to play the intro.
Welcome to Broadcast Map, the show that covers the world of broadcasting, the Canadian media landscape, sports media, the show's favorite sports teams, as well as news and politics. Here's your host, Ali Musa.
Good afternoon on Thursday, August the 28th, 2025. And I am joined here by the host of the Sound Off podcast. We've got Matt Kundle. Matt, it's always a pleasure whenever we get a chance to chat.
Thanks. I love chatting with you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words. Now, there have been I want to sort of start by sort of asking you, when it comes to, say, when you listen to someone like, now of course you and I have both had a chance to chat with Dave Sturgeon, but when you listen to him sort of talk, about what's kind of happening in the industry, and of course especially in Canada, and then you look at what's actually happening in front of us, there seems to be a bit of a difference between the thought process, between his sort of thought process and between, say, what's actually going on, say, the way we may look at it. Is it just that he's still kind of a believer in radio, in the medium, because of the fact that he's been in it and doing what he does for so many years, or is it ignoring the trend of what's happening today?
So he's an ad buyer, and he knows that in order for his clients to be successful, radio needs to be part of the package. And in his book and in the conversations that he's had with us, he is saying that radio is undervaluing itself. It is not doing the best that it can do in order to really promote itself. And yes, radio is losing money to digital, and that doesn't necessarily need to happen. And radio needs to sort of promote themselves in a better way. It hasn't really done anything to, promote themselves in the last 20 years. I'm still being served 10 in a row and no commercials. That's not exactly something that's going to make me want to listen longer. They're firing my favorite personalities. That's going to make me go away from the station and probably going to make me go away from the medium altogether. And yes, there are, it is a business and decisions do need to be made. But what are you replacing it with? I watch Moneyball. I don't know. I do like that movie. They lost some baseball players and they kept, the scouts just kept trying to replace it with hits and runs. And you really needed to take a different formula and replace those lost parts in the aggregate. Radio's given up so much over the last 20 years and just they've ceded it. They've let it go. And what he's saying is it doesn't have to be this way. The bigger change that has happened, happened in 2019 when personalities really became the biggest selling point for the most, the number one reason why people would tune into a radio station is for the personalities. Maybe it's not true with every station, but in terms of radio, it is. And it's because people can get music anywhere. But here we are. We've got radio stations that are constantly being launched with 10 in a row and no commercials. What are we doing? So, there's it's a give your head a shake kind of approach to what's going on in radio. And I know people are trying new things. But as an industry, this is not a together industry. You've got companies, Belcourse, Rogers, that are doing really their own thing. And yes, Stingray, they're kind of doing their own thing. And then we've got the up and coming independent owners who really are radio first. And they're the ones who are out there really leading the charge to what radio innovation should be. They don't have deep pockets, but they're finding ways to be innovative to get people to listen, local, live, repurposing content, other things. So that's kind of where radio in Canada sits right now. It's a bit of a wake up call, and I think Dave's right to have given us this wake up call in his book.
So he does get it then. So he does kind of get what's going on.
I think once you leave radio and you still sort of work within the parts of it, you can really get a good idea of what's going on from the outside. There's a saying, you can't read the label inside the pickle jar. And once you leave the jar, you can read the label and you can see what's going on. And he's got a lot at stake. He's got ad buyers he's got to make happy. If he's just going to be selling digital his whole life, he's going to be churning clients, because guess what? If you're putting all your ad spend on Facebook, this is not going to be for long. This is not going to go well. Digital is not as powerful as you think. You might spend a lot of time there. You might be addicted to cat pictures and other things. But in terms of putting your ads up there, it's not sustainable for most businesses.
Yeah, I agree with that, because because when it comes to, because I think in order to capture, it has to come from, in some cases, for people to hear the ads on the radio.
Yeah,
or
well,
however they listen.
It matters. If it's on the radio, it matters. Like that hasn't gone away. It matters. You can put anything up on Facebook. You can put anything up on Instagram.
Yep.
Right. But when it's on the radio, it matters, and it always has. And that's still there. Where people are saying it doesn't matter, somewhere in the hallways of, hey, should we go with this? Should we run with this? Should we do this? Should I do birthdays at 7:10? No, you don't want to do birthdays at 7:10 because it doesn't matter. Well, you know what? It does matter. So do the birthdays at 7:10. People are still excited for birthdays. No reason to cede that to Facebook.
Yeah, and that's it, right? So yeah, and I mean, if you're making the ad buyers, and I mean, but see, when it comes to these three companies, like Bell, Rogers, and Chorus, they're only their thing is not the medium. Their thing is they have to please the shareholders.
Right. And so they are reporting to shareholders every quarter. That's a few months. You can't do a lot in a few months. You can't turn the corner in a few months. If you would like to build a new morning show, that's going to take 3 years. So how many quarters is that going to take? Well, the answer is 12. It's going to take 12 quarters in order to, really, convince shareholders that this is your morning show, or this is the new direction of the new brand we're going to do. So between the shareholders and what it takes to build, anything, it could be a podcast, it could be a TV show, it could be a radio show, it could be a morning show, it could be anything. It's just known that it takes 3 years to build that audience. And if you're not going to wait for it, just don't bother to do it.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, even if you look at, say, even different podcasts that are kind of emerging, some are saying that, where I think it may not have the same connection that, say, local and live local radio does, but it's a place that some people are turning.
Yeah, and that's the big hole in the podcast space right now, is for geolocal. So Adam Curry, who is a co-founder and co-inventor of podcasting, he's a former MTV VJ, by the way, for those who can remember all the way back to the early 80s. He's a co-inventor of podcasting, and this is what he has said is the big opportunity, and that's to create a podcast that is local. It's in your neighborhood. And it's there to really replace, not necessarily like your local radio station, but it's there to replace the newspaper, which might not be there anymore or may have reverted to weekly. It might be replacing the radio station that is not live 24/7. It might be supplementing, another form of media in the town. We've seen, especially in Canada, we've seen some small town television stations just turn in their license in the last little while. So this is the opportunity. I think technologically, there are a few companies. I just spoke recently with somebody from RSS.com. They're a podcast host. It's a place where you can be distributing your podcast, but they are all in on the location tag. And what does that mean? It means right now that Ali Moose is doing a podcast, and he is located in, just outside of Toronto. And there we go. This is happening in your neighborhood right now, and you'll be able to see that. And so we're not far off where podcasts are going to be able to, be seen locally. You're going to be able to sort for that in the future.
I think that'd be very interesting, and I think it's like an interesting sort of market. Like even when it comes to sports, like you look at, say, what the fans do. Well, the fan is kind of trying to keep up. It seems. I don't know how well they're doing with it, with kind of making their shows sound like podcasts. But you've got the Locked On Network, who's doing a bunch of different sort of who I think 30-minute packages of covering just your team.
Yeah, boy, have they ever managed to put the boots to sports radio. So they only allow one podcast in their network per market. So there's only one Green Bay Packers podcast. There's only one Buffalo podcast for the Bills, but there's also just one for the Sabres. There's one for the Winnipeg Jets. There's one for, the Florida Panthers. And they have amassed their podcast where they ask their creators to do 30 minutes a day, minimum, and put out that content. It's always there and people know where to find it. And so your local sports station might have, struggled to have people on the air. Maybe in the case of, most Canadian cities, I think the stations are largely gone. The only two sports stations, I think, is there one still in Vancouver? They put one back on. Stingray put one back on just outside of Edmonton.
That one's still around.
Yeah, Toronto.
Yeah, 650, Sportsnet 650s in Vancouver still around.
Yeah, so listen, the three biggest markets are the only ones who really have viable, what is considered to be viable sports stations, and often it's because they've got some teams, associated with it. But Winnipeg, there's nothing. Calgary, they shut that down. They shut down Edmonton 1260, which was one of the better ones in the country. Another smaller station did pop up in the meantime, but by and large, sports radio especially has moved, into the podcast space and into the YouTube space.
Like the only thing you don't get, say, with the Locked On Network are like some of our analysts who would come on as a guest, to kind of break down sort of what happened and what the team should do and this and that.
Yeah, so that's one of the drawbacks of, the Locked On Network is that they need to go and find talent. And they do have somebody in-house who is always looking for talent, somebody who's really going to make a great podcast. But, I think a simple market to really talk about right now is the Buffalo market. The Buffalo Bills used to be, sad sack football team. And, within the last 6-7 years, they've really picked it up and have now become what I believe is truly America's team. It's not the Cowboys anymore, but they've got so many podcasts now in Buffalo that talk just about this team. And, again, you don't even have to be located in Buffalo to do this, but there's a great, ecosystem of analysts and broadcasters who are also going to be participating in this. Buffalo, they like to call it a big family. And I think that's the same way with their podcasts as well. But, if you're locked on and you make a deal with a podcaster who, may not have all the connections and may not have all the ins. And I do think in this day and age too, it's also harder to get people to come on your podcast because so many people are doing it now. At least that's what I'm finding is that, a lot of people are making content these days and it can be a little bit harder to get those top guests.
Yeah, and by analysts, I mean somebody like a Steve Phillips, for example, from MLB Radio and people like that, and to kind of get on there. And sometimes I'll check out. Sometimes I like to listen to Overdrive on a lot of times I like to see on Overdrive on TSN 1050 to see who have they got. Are they talking to somebody who's going to give an analyst who's going to give a perspective on the Leafs and the Jays a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I think that's also something I look for. So then I know, what's not only what's happening, but then sort of maybe something maybe I can sort of cover too.
I tried to get Scott Hansen from the Red Zone on my show. And I figured it was time. And I think he's got a very interesting story to tell. And 2 weeks after I sent him the request, would you please come on my show? the Red Zone was purchased by ESPN, and I'm like, crap.
Oh my.
I'm not gonna get him on my show now. I'd have to go through a whole bunch of other corporate stuff. Listen, nobody wants to go on a show 2 weeks after you were purchased. You're gonna make the owners happy and not do anything crazy like go on the Sound Off podcast. But it doesn't hurt to ask and to reach out. But I do find that there's a lot of people making a lot of requests all the time, and I think getting the guest to come on your show, it's really about relationships. If you can make a relationship with someone and say hi, one of the best things that I ever got to do was go up and meet Sarah Spain. And I met Sarah Spain at a conference, and I went up and said hello to her. And I said, would you come on my podcast sometime? And I didn't bother her. And then like a month later, I asked her to come on, and she's wonderful. Just to, took the time to come on my show, remembered meeting me, and that stuff matters. So my advice to any podcaster, if you want to go and get people on your show, leave your basement, go out, meet people, shake hands, kiss babies, get yourself in front of the people that you want to and show that you're involved. There's no better marketing in the world than just being involved.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it certainly makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you care, you're there, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Now, when it comes to say, like, you and I have had this sort of conversation in the past. You know how what Google did was they had Google Podcasts, then they turned it into YouTube Music and this and that. Does it kind of seem like they're not committed to anything?
Oh, they're committed, all right. They're committed to YouTube. They are very excited to be promoting YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a. They've managed to bastardize the word podcast and turn it into kind of what we're doing now. We're just two people. We've got our video cameras on and we're having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And, people would look at this and go, oh, it's clear that Ali and Matt, this is a podcast and I'm going to take in this podcast in some capacity. YouTube is very powerful for search. It's going to wind up popping on your algorithm at some point. If you go in there, you could be served cat videos, but you could also be served this dose of sports talk or broadcast talk or whatever it is that we're going to have. And as a result of everybody putting cameras in front of themselves, I think it's really detracted from the audio. And,
yeah,
listen, it's hard for people. I understand it's, you get your phone in front of you and you have to look for a podcast and what am I going to listen to? And, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify too, they try to curate the show so you can find it. But, what do you have to go off? Artwork. Spotify is going to offer up a clip. Is that going to be enough to get you in? As opposed to what I think is probably one of the best ways to market your show. And that could be with an Instagram reel or a YouTube short or just being on YouTube. Again, it goes right back to you care, you're there. And YouTube is finding its way into the bedrooms. YouTube is, you got a smart TV, it's in your bedroom. People are watching YouTube before they go to bed. There's stuff going on there that, you could interact or collide with, and that makes it quite valuable. However, and I would like to warn everybody about this, and it's keeping me up at night a little bit. And that's the number of people who are jumping into this content creator space and then getting a camera, talking to the camera, paying attention to the camera, and not really creating a great audio experience. You're going to get way more people listening to your show because a podcast, as it is now and should be defined for, and I will credit James Cridland from Pod News, who had stickers that said something to the effect of a podcast is something for your ears while your eyes are busy. And I don't know about you, but my eyes are busy all day. And most of the time, my ears could use something really refreshing.
Oh, I like the audio. I'm an audio guy.
I am too. And you're going to get way more people connecting and falling in love with you through audio than they will watching me through my 1080p stream that I'm giving you from my studio right now.
Well, that's it, right? See, in fact, sometimes I have people like, are we just video audio? Well, I always say, if you want to have your video on, that's fine, but I don't make it a requirement. As long as you can be heard, as long as we can be heard, we're good.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's not binary necessarily.
No.
It's both. And I sort of look at the video side of the podcast world as the billboard when you're traveling down the highway. I know it's there. I'll get to it later. I may take the exit coming up in about 20 miles and consume it at that point. So, and again, in terms of discovery, it used to be people talking to one another and saying, "Oh, have you checked out this podcast? It's really good. You should check it out." And now, unfortunately, it's changed to Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts because we were spending way too much time scrolling away.
Oh yeah, yep. But what about like, see, when it comes to some of their other sort of, because they've also got their hand in their workspace products too. Google, that is. Does it seem that
succeeding? They're trying and succeeding most of the time with their products.
Well, they are. I think one of the things that's kind of been a failure for them though is Google Meet.
Oh, interesting you say that. So, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to think when we were going to talk about failure, we would talk about Google Plus, and then we could talk about the Google Podcast app, and then we could talk about having Google Play inside, Google Podcast inside the Google Play app. But
yeah,
it's funny you mentioned Google Meet, and I used that for my first meeting this morning, and then after that, I've had nothing but Zoom meetings all day, including what we're doing right now. And I don't spend any time on Zoom, except for meetings and the exception of this podcast. So I use Google Meet for my meetings. But to your point, I'm going to say you're right. They haven't innovated or evolved the product in the last 3 years, and so that's generally a hint that this thing is either dead or on the way out.
Because let me tell you something. Here's what happens. Okay. If you and someday, someday, feel free to actually try the experiment, okay? Especially on mobile, specifically on mobile. So I'm not sure. I use an iPhone. I'm not sure which phone. I'm not sure which one you use. Do you use an iPhone?
The latest.
Yeah. So you've got an iPhone?
Yeah, I got one.
So what happens is, with their updates, they seem to be doing nothing. So, and this is something I've even reported to their engineers. So what happened? And nothing has been done. So here's what's happening. Here's what happens. Whenever somebody who's joining on mobile, okay, after it updates, and they click the link to join, it behaves as though the app is not even installed. So what does it do? It brings you to an information page, the information page explaining what the app is to install it.
Yeah, so you're looped.
Yeah. So what's the way to fix it? Well, you got to keep uninstalling it and reinstall it again. Like, what is this?
I think they need to know about that stuff. It depends. Are you in beta? Because it really does depend if you're up to iOS 25 or 26 or whatever, the one that they just recently released.
I'm on the 26 beta.
Are you on the beta?
On my iPad, yes.
Okay, but if it's on your phone, now you know why they have these things in beta. But again, reporting the stuff is better than ever. Apple's usually generally on top of this sort of thing too, so I'm really surprised to hear that.
Yeah, no, actually, this is a Google Meet issue, not an Apple issue.
Oh, sorry, yeah, for Google Meet. Again, just going back to Google, then they're not taking care of their stuff. Like, they have not made an update on this in a number of years. So, yeah, that makes sense. Right,
and so. This was, and I'm using Workspace as well as for the domain emails and things. So I like the Workspace. I like the Workspace product. Like, I like the Drive docs and the Gmail. But the only thing, but seeing as Meet gave so many, it's like I'm not doing. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I found it never doesn't integrate with too many of my products either, so I wind up staying away from it.
What's that, Google Meet?
Yep.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing now, but here's the interesting thing. Now, the reason say even if you compare Google Meet and Zoom is doing a lot to innovate, and they do a good job of marketing their stuff too.
Yeah, so Zoom took off in 2020 during the pandemic, and we all didn't really spend too much time learning how to use it, and then we all learned how to use it and become, we still really didn't find out where the mute button was for the longest time, and then we really didn't find out how to integrate the video properly. I think we're doing better with it now. Zoom has some competitors, but when it comes to recording podcasts, I think Zoom is still very popular because it's Zoom. However, you need to be able to split the audio into two different segments. And there's still not a podcast I haven't heard that is, that I can't recognize. Oh yeah, that's recorded with Zoom. I can still hear it.
Yeah. See, the reason I use it, because it's easier for me.
And a lot of people are like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, especially if you're using Riverside.fm, it's nice, but it's not for everyone. And Descript, difficult at times, not for everyone. Squadcast, that's one they're not really taking care of as much inside the Descript family.
Yep.
So, you go with what you know. I mean, what's your favorite pen? This is my favorite pen right here. It's a Uniball. I like using it. I'm going to use that particular pen. So it's much the same way. It works that way.
Yep. Yeah. And even that was another thing. Even like even Riverside. Yeah. While it's a good while it's a good product, but it's not the most easiest to use at times.
Yeah. So I'm not a Riverside subscriber. I'm hoping to have somebody from Riverside come on the podcast Super Friends in the next little while to talk about some of their products. I have a lot of clients who use it and they really like it. And they're doing well with it. They love the colors. I think some of the things you can do after the fact are very helpful, whether that's make a reel. You can even go live with it now. I would love to recommend StreamYard more, but I know StreamYard is very expensive, especially after their 44% increase on their product with very few improvements. Again, you can make it pretty, you can make it nice. And it goes back to like whatever you're used to using and whatever you're happiest using. That's the one you should go with.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like what we've got going here, right? I've got, now I do that, like I do a recording there in like, of course, as we just saw in, directly in Zoom 2, just as a backup, just in case. Like, and then I've also got, what I've got going is I also, you mentioned to me that you're a Mac user at one point.
Still am.
Okay. Yeah. So what I do on the Mac is I also use Audio Hijack for recording.
Yeah.
As well.
That's one that I know that it will help you capture, audio, and something that I used to use many, many years ago for radio air checks, if you can believe it.
Oh yeah. No, it's good for that. It's good for that because you can hear exactly, you can hear like as long as you've got the proper output blocks, you can hear how it's sounding.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So what I've got going here is I use a few of their products. I use Audio Hijack, Rogue Amoeba's products. So I use Audio Hijack, and I use Fargo, which is their soundboard app, and I use Loopback, which allows for the call which allows you on the call to hear any audio that I'm playing, like the intro, for example. So I've got all those sources, including Zoom, set up in Audio Hijack. So it records, and I've got all the audio from all those sources because I've got separate recorder blocks there. So I've got them going to separate files. I have them being recorded to separate tracks. So everything is on separate. So the audio from my mic is on a separate track. Is on a separate track. The Zoom audio is on a separate track. The Fargo audio is also on its own track. So I'll have 3 tracks of the sources. So it'll give me kind of everything in what we sort of need.
Yeah, separate tracks is really the key. And the fact that you've got this and you're doing it with Zoom means you're using Zoom properly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because now the reason I do the recording in Zoom, because in Audio Hijack, if you and anything can happen by accident. You know what I mean? Where if I accidentally move a block, or a block moves, like let's say you move one source by accident, you don't realize it, it won't record you'll have a mess up and it won't record the audio as it should have if you make one slight movement of the block. So That's why then it's like, instead of having it in the back of my head going, oh, what if this happens? I figure, well, I might as well just do a recording there, and might as well do the recording in Zoom too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're brave. You fly by the seat of your pants and you do this live.
I do.
I know there's no, I don't even do my show live.
Yeah, and the reason I like to go live, because I always sort of had this. I always felt, hey, you know what? I'd love to do something live. I'd love to do it live, and I would, and like have something, because I used to like talk radio back in the day.
Yeah, it's one of the best things you can do, and that feeling of being live and going live is great. And that's why I like coming on your show, because it's live. Keeps me sharp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what do you think of Josh Allen this year? How do you think he'll perform this year?
Okay, so is he going to get the MVP? I don't know. Who wins this thing 2 years in a row, right? Yeah. So I'm watching Hard Knocks, and I love seeing the Bills on Hard Knocks. They look like a fun football team to watch. Josh Allen's just, the nicest guy. Even when I went to the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Bills for the AFC Championship last year, Kansas City fans like Josh Allen too. He's how can you hate him, right? He's just one of the nicest guys. And this Hard Knocks show really makes him and paints him as a very, very endearing figure. How's he going to do? Well, how about this? And I think this was Rex Ryan who said this. Josh Allen really doesn't lose to the Chiefs. It's the team in front of them that loses to the Chiefs, because, Josh Allen's putting up significant points every time he's playing in big games. And for whatever reason, the Bills just don't have that defensive thing sorted out. And it's bizarre, because that's the coach comes from the defensive side of the ball, and they just haven't had the defense that they need to get to the Super Bowl. It's weird. And here they are scrambling. They lost the first round draft pick to an injury. He's going to be out for the first 4 games minimum. He's on injured reserve. Then, they brought back Jordan Poyer. I feel like it's old home week again. It's weird, to say the least. The injuries are stacking up, and every year we sort of get bit by this, and it sort of crumbles on the defensive side at the end.
Yeah.
To answer your question, though, Josh Allen's going to have a great year.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. And kind of to circle back on the Jets there, the Winnipeg. Yeah, they don't. You're right. They don't have Winnipeg doesn't have a sports station. So like CJOB actually carries the Jets games.
Yeah, they do. They picked it up actually. I think when TSN was going to give it up, and they've been running with it for a while. They also simulcast the games on Power 97. I'll just go on record and say that's a big mistake.
What is that? I've heard that. What is Power 97?
Power 97 was actually the station that I was working at for about 7 years before I was let go by Chorus. So it's at 97.5. It's a rock station. And now they're playing alterna rock, or, classic alternative, or whatever the format would be. And, Alan Cross has a presence on the station. And Jay Richardson, who's the voice of the Jets inside the building, he's the guy who announces the goals. He does the morning show on Power 97. And they carry the games in the evening, which I listen to it, and listen, it's an FM radio station, but it sounds like it's university hockey that's coming out of there when you tune it in. Sometimes you just know the sound, and the sound is just not quite there, and it sounds like a collegiate hockey game instead of what would be a nice NHL game on an FM signal. Why? You don't need to simulcast it. I don't know why they do it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Does not help their ratings.
Yeah, when they were in the playoffs, it was so interesting because I also use the SiriusXM streaming package, so I could listen to the Jets. So I was listening to the Jets games. I was listening to some Jets like when they were in during their playoff run a little bit, and I do like their audio broadcasters too.
Oh, they're pros. It eludes me right now who calls the games, but I know Kelly Moore, who for many, many years did games out in Kamloops. I remember he came back, and he's a pro. It's It's big time radio, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And they can find they can find you at mattkundle.com, I believe.
I can be found at Matt Kundle in so many different places. Instagram, I'm still active on X, if you can believe it. I thought I would be leaving there, but I didn't wind up leaving there in the end because I realized I just had too big an audience there. I'm on Blue Sky at mattkundle.com, and as well, I'm on Threads at Matt Kundle.
Are you on Mastodon yet?
I am not. I'm on Discord though.
Oh, you are on Discord.
I am. Yeah, I'm in a few groups, and yeah.
Yeah, I thought about leaving X. I'm not a big fan of how the platform has become.
You know what? I think you're right. It's changed. The audience has changed, and I can tell that some of the things that I like to talk about are not very popular with the algorithm and probably don't go a lot of places. But I'm treating them all as equal participants and seeing, what I can get the best out of in the end.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason I'm there because media's still hanging out there.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think they have been. Again, I can upload video to X. And all that said, yes, I pay $100 a year to the evil man who makes those silly cars.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for that. I wouldn't pay to be I wouldn't pay to get verified.
I did, and I like uploading video. And again, I don't have any evidence to say that it does work or it doesn't work, and I will keep paying until I get the answer, but I'm checking this stuff every day. But after a year, I think one of the things that X does really, really well is live play-by-play of a news event and live play-by-play of a sports event or The Bachelor. There's still fans on there for The Bachelor.
Well, you can't even subscribe through the App Store anymore.
Really?
I don't think you can.
Oh, darn.
I'm not paying for it. I'm not paying for it, but
and you're right not to. I mean, it's social media. There's lots of free options out there. I think, silently, we didn't think we thought Threads was some sort of ripoff of X, and it's not. It's people talking in their proper boxes, which is really neat. Blue Sky, I rushed in there. If you have a domain, you can actually verify yourself by attaching your domain to Blue Sky. So I'm mattkundle.com on there. You can also find soundoff.network is also linked up on there.
Oh, you can verify the domain? So I could essentially...
So you can do that through your domain server. And there's a small process. I'll be happy to share the link with you with an instruction on how to do that. And it's better than having a handle saying, mattkundle.bski.social, whatever.
So essentially I could make mine broadcastmap.ca, essentially.
Totally. Absolutely.
Even though my existing one is, as you know, at Broadcast Map.
Right. You can still do it.
So it wouldn't make me create a new account.
No, absolutely. You can just change the current account you have to that handle.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be pretty good. Yeah, if you can drop that, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, and I want to say hi to Paul Edmonds, who does the play-by-play for the Winnipeg Jets. I forgot your name, and I'm sorry, but it's August, and I've put the Jets season from last year behind me.
There we go. And we'll be back real soon. Towards the end of the month, we're doing an NHL season preview show. Jim Taddy's going to stop by again.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, do you remember Jim Taddy?
I certainly do. I mean, listen, in Canada, how can you not know every Toronto sports announcer? It's pretty much what you get served.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking, we should give Joe Bowen a shout out. He's calling it a career at the end of after this upcoming season.
Yeah, I'm not into too much Leafs talk. In fact, I'm going to put that in my contract, Ali, that we don't talk about the Leafs ever.
Oh, I'm looking forward to our chat soon again too.
No, I love coming on your show because we can talk about just about anything and everything, but it always comes back to broadcasts. All of that. Yes.
I think we're broadcast enthusiasts. I think.
What's that?
I think we're broadcast enthusiasts.
Oh, listen, it's in your blood, man. It's in your blood. You're good. This is how you live it. You're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna die like this.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for listening and/or watching Broadcast Map. To learn more about the show, please visit broadcastmap.ca. While you're there, Subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss an update. Besides, it's free. Enter your email address and hit subscribe right on the homepage and at the bottom of all Broadcast Map posts.
Just hang tight for 1 second, Matt. I'm going to just stop the recordings.